The market is up today. BTC at almost $93,000. Ethereum up 9%. Hello everyone and welcome to Crypto Red, the channel for crypto news. There's a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about Chainlink ETF. We're going to talk about stablecoins. I'll tell you about a new security feature on MetaMask. We're going to talk also about Kraken, Ethereum, RWA, Aave. A lot of things happen. As I said, cryptocurrencies are generally up today. This has been continuing since yesterday. Solana up 12%, Cardano 14%, Chainlink almost doing 20% in 24 hours. I told you earlier that Chainlink ETF was coming, and now it's official. The Chainlink Spot ETF in the US from Grayscale has been launched. This is the first spot ETF that lets you buy Chainlink token directly. And it's really the start of, it's the continuing of new wave of altcoin ETFs. The XRP ETF launched a while ago and performed well. The Solana ETF also did pretty well. Now we'll see how it goes for Chainlink, but it's definitely good news. Next, did you know that PayPal's stablecoin PYUSD is absolutely exploding? Market cap is at $3.8 billion. In July, it was still around $1 billion, so the growth has been huge. PayPal has managed to create real demand around its stablecoin. They're very active in decentralized finance, giving financial incentives to push people to use PYUSD, and honestly, that's why it's working in my opinion. Then let's talk about a company whose goal is to buy as many HYPE tokens as possible. The company is called Sonnet. They just completed the merger and will now operate as Hyperliquid Strategies, and their goal is to buy $1 billion worth of HYPE. They even filed another request to purchase the $1 billion of HYPE. It's definitely good news for HYPE. It's pretty crazy to see a company with ambition that big for this token, especially since HYPE market cap is around $10 billion. So we'll see how they plan to carry out that $1 billion acquisition. I think part of it will be provided directly in token, so it won't be full $1 billion in cash on buying HYPE on open market, but still it's very interesting to see what they're trying to do. They're basically trying to create a sort of stock market listing for HYPE, because if a company that holds that many tokens, 10% of the market cap, it becomes a way to have a listed asset that reflects HYPE's price. Now, treasury strategies like this haven't been doing well lately. For a new company launching with a large concentrated crypto position, we sometimes see a big bump at first. We saw that recently with Zcash, which went really well at the beginning with the company of the Winklevoss brothers. But yeah, at scale it becomes complicated. Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, is running into issues. Bitmain also. It's getting harder in the current market environment. If crypto starts trending up again, like today, maybe things will improve, but yeah, we'll see. Now, MetaMask just introduced a new security feature. Look at this. It's called Transaction Shield, a shield for your transaction. And what they're doing actually is pretty interesting. MetaMask already has something called Transaction Protection, which warns you about scams or known attacks patterns in a transaction. But Transaction Shield goes one step further. They're adding a form of insurance. So when MetaMask tell you this transaction is safe, if you still get hacked right after confirming it, MetaMask will reimburse you up to $10,000. Of course, this isn't free. It costs $10 per month. It is basically works as a small insurance layer. But be careful. It doesn't protect you if your seed phrase is stolen or if you put money into a protocol that later gets hacked. It only applies to what happened during the transaction itself. My opinion, it's kind of useless. I really don't think it's worth paying $10 a month for something so limited. The warning already exists in MetaMask, and honestly, I recommend Rabby. It's a way better wallet than MetaMask. So no, I really don't see any real usefulness for this. To me, it looks like another business model for MetaMask, a way for them to create a kind of recurring revenue stream from users. That's the trend right now. We've seen it with Ledger too. MetaMask already makes, I think, a majority of its revenue from swaps, hundreds of millions of dollars probably. But now they're trying to diversify how they make money. It's interesting because they're not actually monetizing the transaction protection feature itself. What they're monetizing is the insurance that goes along with it. So if it reassures you, go ahead and take it. Take $10 per month. It's not a huge amount. It's just that the transaction they're going to insure you are going to be very basic ones. The kind you do on the most well-known protocol where there's basically no risk. And that's not really where you need insurance. Then, We're going to talk about Binance. We've got a new CEO at Binance, a co-CEO. We're talking about Yihi. That's her right here. She's considered one of Binance's historical co-founders. Until now, CZ stepped until now, yeah. Well, you know the story of Binance. CZ stepped down a year ago. Don't know exactly how many months ago he stepped down. Binance had one new CEO named Richard Teng, and suddenly they're becoming two CEOs, two co-CEOs, a bit like BlackBerry in the past. You remember they had two co-CEOs. There are a few companies that have tried the dual CEO model. Usually it causes problems. For example, we have now the Ethereum Foundation, which currently has two heads. I really don't like this kind of structure at all. When you put two different leaders at the top, it always ends up causing issues, even if their scope are clearly separated. And he is very close to CZ. It's public. It's been said in plenty of interviews. She's the mother of CZ's children. We don't know what their current relationship status is, but in any case, she's close to CZ. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this kind of announcement. I expected more of a return of CZ himself after the pardon he received. I don't know the details, whether he's actually allowed now to come back as CEO after that pardon, but yeah. What do we know is that someone really close to CZ is now back at the head of the biggest crypto exchange in the world. Next, let's talk about another crypto exchange, Kraken. Kraken just bought the company Backed Finance. Backed Finance is very well known in the RW space because they're the team behind the X tokens. You know the X tokens, the X tokenized stocks on Solana. It's tokenized equities on the blockchain. And Kraken just made a really nice move buying this company. Remember also, Kraken is getting ready for its IPO. It should be happening in the next few months, I believe. RW, you can track this RW assets if you want on this website that I'm showing you, RWXYZ. It's a pretty good website, but some of it is paid, unfortunately. Then let's talk about Ethereum, and the next upgrade is coming in 10 hours, basically. A few hours from now, it's happening today, December 3rd, the Fusaka upgrade. There will be a lot of small updates, but the main one people are waiting for is the improvement of the L2 data availability, giving rollups much more space to store things on Ethereum. It's called PeerDAS. It's going to allow in the long run a major reduction in transaction costs for L2s. It won't happen all at once. L2 capacity can increase up to 8x, but they're going to scale it gradually. We'll see the impact over the coming weeks and months. So yeah, it's always interesting to see that Ethereum continues with its strategy of improving L2 performance while also improving L1 performance. We saw the gas limit increase recently. It went up to 60 million, allowing more transaction per second on Ethereum. They're working on all three fronts: the main chain's performance, the L2 ecosystem performance, and the user experience with things like unified liquidity and other features designed to simplify the life for Ethereum users. Now, let's talk about decentralized finance with Aave. Aave just launched on Mantle. Mantle is Bybit's blockchain, Bybit's L2 built on Ethereum. Yet another exchange with its own L2 built on Ethereum after Kraken, after Coinbase. They almost all have an L2 built on Ethereum. And Aave is launching on Mantle to capture liquidity and basically go where the money is. Mantle is deeply integrated with Bybit, and yeah, it's good news for Aave. But we have to remember, a lot of Aave deployments on various blockchains haven't performed well. There is even a governance proposal on Aave's forum suggesting shutting down a number of those deployments. Here you can see all the blockchains where Aave is currently deployed. You can look at the annualized revenue column, which showed the estimated yearly revenue generated by each blockchain. You can see that on Ethereum, it's $142 million. That's about around 80% of revenue. Plasma is doing pretty well too, around 5%, Base at 2.7%, Arbitrum 3%, Avalanche 2%. All of that is pretty good, but you notice very quickly that there are a lot of blockchains that barely generate any revenue. Zk Sync is around $20,000 per year. Sonium is $50,000 per year. Metis is at $3,000. So yeah, basically it's negligible, and it still costs money to keep these blockchains, or rather these Aave instances running. You have to monitor them. You have to adjust the parameters. You can't just deploy Aave and let it live on its own. There's an entire system of configuration that has to be maintained continuously so that Aave works properly for users. So the team needs to follow all of that. And now there's a proposal to shut down Soneum, zkSync, and Metis, to close them completely, to close the Aave instances completely, not the blockchains. And they also consider shutting down the other Aave instances like Polygon, BNB Chain, Optimism. There's no debate about the biggest one, but for the smaller ones, they said they really need to ask themselves a question. And they're actually doing something quite interesting. They want to set a minimum threshold. Basically, every Aave instances would need to generate at least $2 million per year, and that could be achieved in different ways. For example, the blockchain itself could directly give money to Aave, or the Aave instance could be required to hold a minimum amount of Go stablecoins, which could also be purchased or sponsored by the blockchain to support Aave presence on that chain. But overall, Aave is clearly thinking about how to generate revenue as much as possible. And honestly, they're right to treat Aave like an actual company, a company with costs and revenue that needs to shut down the entities that aren't profitable, even if that might cause problems long term. Imagine, for example, that Metis, the L2, if we can call it like becomes a massive blockchain in the future. Well, Aave wouldn't benefit from that growth if they shut it down, but that's a risk they're willing to take. They're ready to redeploy later if there's a real demand also. So yeah, let's actually stay on the topic of L2s and decentralized finance and how it compares to exchanges. Look at this. Coinbase just announced something, and here it's CEO Brian Armstrong explaining how it works. They just announced a feature for people who have staked token on Coinbase. Well, they can now withdraw them instantly, but only if they pay a 1% fee. A 1% fee is just massive. Think about Ethereum. You get maybe 2-3% per year APY. If you pay 1% fees, you basically wiped out a huge part of your return instantly, especially if you've been staking for a month or two. Basically, you lost money. They announced this feature, and of course it created controversy because Coinbase already takes a big cut when you stake tokens with them. They take a much bigger share of the yield compared to Lido or other liquid staking protocols. And now on top of that, if you want to withdraw instantly, you have to pay. Otherwise, you wait the normal number of days required for native and staking. They said the waiting time is 38 days, and they also mentioned an interesting option, honestly, which is converting your ETH into Coinbase ETH, basically the wrapped liquid staking version of ETH on Coinbase. But again, the yield on Coinbase is much lower, and also for CB/ETH. So for me, what this really shows is the natural tendency of centralized exchange to take too big of a share of the return generated by users, by the users' crypto, and even to create a situation where users lose money if they want to unstake quickly. That's exactly why I prefer decentralized finance platforms. I clearly prefer doing this on Lido. You get a better yield, you have an excellent liquidity if you want to sell your ST/ETH overnight. That's why I think it's just much better. So yeah. And to finish, let's talk about Bitfinex. Bitfinex is the exchange that shares the same shareholders as Tether, the company behind the number one stablecoin on the market, USDT. Bitfinex are behind the Stable, the new blockchain Stable, which is a blockchain meant to be kind of payments blockchain, a blockchain for stablecoins, basically a blockchain built around USDT, kind of like Plasma. I talked to you about Plasma just before regarding Aave. Bitfinex and Plasma are really similar. They're two stable blockchains. I'm sorry, I meant Plasma and Stable are really similar. These are two blockchains built around USDT. Stable hasn't launched its token yet. It's coming very soon, and they just published their white paper. And in that white paper, they outlined a bunch of things: how the Stable token will work, how the blockchain will function. So yes, USDT is going to be at the center of the blockchain to pay for gas fees. You'll be able to stake their Stable tokens to earn a share of the transaction fees and gas fees generated. But what shocked me is really the tokenomics. The tokenomics are pretty horrible, in my opinion. You've got 25% for the team, 25% for investors, so that basically 50% going to the people behind the project, and 40% for the ecosystem. All of this still ends up being largely controlled by the team, the ecosystem fund. So yeah, at the beginning, we were talking about something like 90% extremely centralized distribution of the coins. I don't like this project at all. Not really about the tokenomics, but mostly about the philosophy. just like Plasma. I also didn't like Plasma because this whole philosophy doesn't resonate with me at all for blockchain. This is really the antithesis of what blockchain stands for. This is a decentralized blockchain built on a centralized asset that makes zero sense at all. I would never invest long-term in a project like Stable, like Plasma. No, I don't believe in that kind of project. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you. So that's what I wanted to share today about the latest crypto news. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next update. All right, bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.